So, Eileen, I have a question for you that I think would be of great interest to serious students of the Alexander Technique, people who have been taking lessons for a while and may have thought about becoming a teacher themselves. I'm sure, as you know, of course, it's a costly and time-consuming process. What kind of recommendations would you make for someone who's contemplating that in terms of is that a good idea for them? And also, how would they choose where to train, given that there's so many training courses available these days?
Oh, that's a good question, and that's kind of dear to my heart just because I've had a lot of students go on and train to be teachers. And we only just recently, I guess maybe it's now been a year and a half ago, started a training course in San Francisco. Not me, but my friend Alice Osher started one. And before that, people used to, my students, some of them actually commuted daily from the San Diego area up to Los Angeles because that was the closest teacher training program. And that takes devotion. That was very impressive.
Right,
Some moved up there, but some just commuted.
right.
So, and I always, I don't tend to tell people, oh, you make a good teacher of Alexander. I just, I mean, that would be very rare. So I'd have to really notice something to say that. But usually I encourage people if they ask me, if they ask, what maybe I'm thinking about training. What do you think about it? I tell everyone that it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do because it's just, I tell them, and we may disagree on this one, but I do tell them it's like the spa experience, spa
Wow,
and
I never
going to a
thought of it
luxurious
quite that way. But there are
spa.
elements of it. There certainly are elements of
Yeah,
it.
for 3 full years, and it isn't. I mean, it isn't. You're studying, you're learning. There is a lot of nice awareness to it that you really develop through a lot of focus and but if really you're having Alexander lessons 5 days a week, 30 weeks a year for 3 years. And that to me is just the most luxurious thing I can imagine. And it, to do that, and usually it's something, if somebody's taking a couple of lessons a week or even, somebody taking 3 lessons a week. When I started training, I was, just before I started training, I was taking 3 lessons a week. And it was $5 cheaper per week to train to be a teacher, and that would be 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. And not that I'd have a private lesson that amount of time the whole time, but I'd just be in the training of it. It'd be like Alexander lessons for all that time. And so I actually started originally because I just wanted more Alexander lessons, and it was $5 cheaper per week to go to the training course.
Right. But
But
what
so
would you advise someone in terms of, let's say that they have an interest in training and there's even some choices available. How would someone evaluate whether a particular school was right for them?
Well, I think it would be important to go and visit the school, or actually, even first have private lessons with the teacher that runs the school, just
Yep,
because that way
absolutely.
you have a sense of what their style is, and you have a sense of what your connection is with them.
Right.
Um, and then certainly going to visit the school and see if you feel comfortable in the environment and the atmosphere of the school. I think that would be an important thing to do because different schools have different styles of Alexander, so to speak,
Hmm.
that they're teaching, and they really all emphasize the very basics. But some emphasize the basics more than others. Others take it to different activities, and so it. I think that it's really great to get the basics. If you're going to train, having the basics is just wonderful.
And when you say
And
basics, what do you mean by basics?
and traditionally in Alexander, the basics are inhibition. They have some funny names to them: inhibition, direction, inhibition, direction, and primary control. Or in what Marge Barstow used to say, who we both worked with for many years, she used to say, what moves first, what's the direction of the movement, and what's the quality of the movement.
Right, right. So I think it would be important for anyone choosing a training course to maybe have some general knowledge of the different strands of Alexander teaching that are out there, so that you have some basis of comparison. I mean, not that we're not promoting one over any other, but I think it would be very useful to spend time, as you say, spend time on a training course and hang out with the people. The thing about Alexander training courses is that they tend to be fairly small, and so you have a relatively small group of people, teachers and students, who are hanging out with each other 3-4 hours a day, and it makes a huge difference whether you get on with the other people and with the teachers. I mean, not everyone is going to be, become your best friend or whatever, but it sure makes training a lot easier and more fun if you're reasonably happy going to the school every day, as you obviously were, and as certainly as I was. I think I might have missed one day the whole 3 years. I was just there early, leaving late, because it was a wonderful experience. So
I just think, no matter what, training is going to be an amazingly good thing for a person.
Yeah, I think so.
No matter what, just having to focus on Alexander for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, 30 weeks a year for 3 years. I just think even if you wouldn't be able to learn to be an Alexander teacher so much by just setting yourself aside that time at home and focusing on it. But just that amount of time of focusing on it does wonders also. And then to have the guidance of the trainer and the training school helping you notice what you're doing, helping you cancel, inhibit habits that you didn't even realize you were doing. It's just wonderful. The detail is fantastic that we learn. I think we must have one of the more intensive trainings of anything. Intensive as in time and detail and supervision.
Absolutely. I mean, we should say for anyone who isn't familiar with the general pattern of Alexander training courses, they typically run for 3 years. They have maybe 1,700 hours a year. Usually very small classes, very low student to teacher ratios. I think it's usually around 4 or 5 to 1. So you get a lot of personal attention. In some ways, it's kind of like an apprenticeship, but with more than one. You're apprenticing with perhaps a small group of teachers. So I think we've said enough to get someone started. I do have a website, and I'll put a link to that on the next to this interview, where people can learn more about Alexander teacher training. Do you have any final words?
No, just if someone's thinking about it, I highly suggest you do it. And it can be so tough, depending on if you're living in an area where there are no training schools. You might have to move, which is just.
Well, I moved to London, England.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's a long way to go.
Yeah. But it's just so worth it. It will change your life to have Alexander that much. And you carry out, after having Alexander that often, that repeatedly, you really carry it into your life on such a deep level. It makes such wonderful change.
On that note,
so I mean, and it's great to be able to go in and help people with this.
Right. Oh, absolutely. All right. I think we'll just we'll end it on that.